Hello there, this is Priyanshi. Hope you all are doing well. So, welcome back to this series of tutorials on spin in quantum mechanics. So, in this video, we'll talk about what should be the form of eigenstates and eigenvalues. This should be eigenvalues for a spin operator in quantum mechanics. So, I'll start by stating some facts that we have already established in the previous videos, and these are the facts that we'll be using here. So these facts will be used here. And in case you haven't watched the previous videos, the link is in the description. So you can go and watch those first. And in any case, I'm going to keep this video self-sufficient. So first of all, one very important fact is that spin is a form of angular momentum. And this is something that we'll be using over and again. So spin is a form of angular momentum and it is an intrinsic angular momentum. So by intrinsic, I mean that I cannot change the value of spin angular momentum by any sort of external probing. So if I say that the measured value of electron spin is plus h cross by 2 and minus h cross by 2 in any direction, then it stays plus h cross by 2 and minus h cross by 2 for electron no matter what interaction, no matter what the external conditions are. Your electron could be interacting with electric field or magnetic field, but this value does not change. So this is like, say, charge or mass of the electron, which does not depend on the external interactions. So it could be used as a label. So this is something intrinsic to the electron, and because this particular property, it has no class. Classically, you cannot find any form of angular momentum which cannot be changed by external probing. So there is no classical angular momentum of such sort. So that is why it's a purely quantum degree of freedom. It is a pure quantum phenomena and there is no classical analog of this spin angular momentum. So this is one important fact. The next point is that if you are talking about a particle which has non-zero values of spin angular momentum, I just talked about electrons, for example. So if I have a non-zero value of spin angular momentum, then this fact means that the state of the particle should be represented by multi-component wave functions. So for example, if I talk about electron or say proton or photons, which are spin 1 particles, so these all particles with non-zero spin have to be represented by multi-component wave functions. And by multi-component wave functions, I mean that something which has many components, like a column vector. So the entries, the components could be functions, say psi1 as a function of xyz, psi2 as a function of xyz, psi3 and so on. So the components could be wave functions, but it cannot be represented by a single component. So you can compare it with say harmonic oscillator. So for example, the 1D harmonic oscillator, the wave function could be represented as simply psi of x. And in case of 1D harmonic oscillator, these were like Hermite polynomial. So if I'm talking about harmonic oscillator, these were in the form of Hermite polynomials. So it's just a scalar wave function. There are no components. But if you consider spin into your picture, then you cannot escape this multi-component state vectors. So this is a form of spin wave functions for non-zero spin angular momentum. Now what the spin operator does is, the action of spin operator is to mix the components. It makes the components of the state vector. So this is the state vector. This is the form of the state vector. And now what spin operator does is, it will mix it. So for example, after some spin operator has acted on it, my first component would be a mixture of say psi1 and psi6 with some amplitudes. So these are some amplitudes with which it is going to mix your components. So for spin operators, what happens is that the fact is that it acts just on the components. Doesn't matter if you start with say constant wave functions. These are constant value instead of psi1, psi2 functions. These are constant values, alpha, beta, gamma, etc. At the end, it is going to mix say with C1 amplitude alpha and with C2 amplitude, say the sixth component, which I call delta. This is the sixth component. So it is just going to give you a rule to mix the components. So for spin operator, it doesn't matter if you are dealing with the functions or constant values. It is just going to mix the indices. So the action is to mix the components, and to effect this action, the form of spin operator, as you can right away see from here, should be in the form of n by n matrices. So these are some matrices n by n with some constant entries here. And this can be contrasted with the orbital angular momentum operator, say Lz, which could be written as in the form of differentials. So these are continuous operators, the orbital angular momentum, and in contrast, the spin angular momentum could be, the form of these are in terms of finite spin matrices, while this act on continuous infinite Hilbert space. So this is one difference. And one important thing that I just pointed out implicitly, that for spin, it doesn't matter whether we are dealing with the functions xyz or constant entries, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't act on the space of functions. It acts on the space of indices here, discrete indices here. So spin does not care about, it has nothing to do with the constant, the continuous variables x, y, and z. So these are some important points that are peculiar to the spin operator, spin angular momentum only, and the orbital angular momentum does not have these properties. These are different from the orbital angular momentum. So these are some points from last videos, last discussions that I'll be using to find out the form of eigenstates and eigenvalues for the spin operators. So let's just start and see how these points, these facts are useful. So I'll start with the fact that spin is a form of angular momentum. This is a form of angular momentum. So we know that there is one more angular momentum that we already know about, and that is the orbital angular momentum. And we denote it by the symbol L vector, and the components are Lx, Ly, and Lz hat, because these are operators. So these are the angular momentum operators. And one thing that we know about angular momentum operators, and you will recall very quickly, is that they obey very specific commutation relations. So for example, if I talk about Lx, Ly, the commutator of Lx, Ly could be written as iota h bar Lz. And similarly, all the cyclic permutations, for example, the commutator of Ly, Lz could be written as I h bar Lx, and the commutator of Lz, Lx could be written as I h bar. These are all operators. So this is something that we know already about the orbital angular momentum operators, and these relations, these commutation relations, can be proved very easily. They follow from the explicit forms for Lx, Ly, and Lz operators. For example, for the Lz operator, as I just wrote, the explicit form is I h bar derivative with respect to y minus y derivative with respect to x. And this follows from the classical relation, which goes by xpy minus ypx. So anyway, this is the form of orbital angular momentum Lz, and similarly there are derivative forms for Lx and Ly operators as well. So if I use the explicit forms for the orbital angular momentum Lx, Ly, and Lz, then these relations follow. So in one way, it seems that these relations, these commutation relations, because they follow from the explicit form of the orbital angular momentum operators, so one might think that these are specific to the orbital angular momentum only. But one interesting fact is that these orbital angular momentum commutation relations, these are more general in nature. Actually, what happens is that this is like a consistency condition for any rotation operators. So this is like a consistency condition for any rotation operator. So what I mean by this statement is that, so if I claim that I have a set of three operators, call it Ax, Ay, or Az, if I say that the three operators, the task of these operators is to effect rotation, that means if I say that these Ax, Ay, and Az, these are some form of angular momentum operator, then this is the kind of commutation relations that Ax, Ay, and Az should obey. So these are more general commutation relations. These are more general conditions that any sort of angular momentum operator should obey. And this can explicitly proved by using the form of transformation, the transformation that is affected by rotations. So the point is that the commutation relations, these commutation relations, so I'll write it here. So this is one very important point, that commutation relations obeyed by L vector, by L vector I mean Lx, Ly and Lz, are more general. And by more general I mean that these are to be satisfied by any form of angular momentum. So what is the consequence for our spin angular momentum? Because spin is also a form of angular momentum, so the components of the spin operator, which I call Sx, Sy and Sz, so these components should also obey the same commutation relations. So I can write that spin operators Sx, Sy and Sz also obey the same commutation relations as L vector, orbital angular momentum. And namely, I'll write it here again. So what I mean is that Sx with Sy commutator should be I h bar Sz, and similarly for all the cyclic permutation, Yz should be Sx, and Sz with Sx commutation should be equal to Sy. So for these commutation relations, we didn't have to work a lot. We just know that because spin is a form of angular momentum, so because it is a form of angular momentum, that is why it obeys the same commutation relations as the orbital angular momentum operators do. So this is a very useful piece of information that we have just deduced, and let's see how we can use this piece of information, these form of orbital commutation relations for spin operators, to deduce the form of the eigenvectors and eigenvalues for the spin operators. So now I'm trying to see what should be the form of eigenvectors. So first thing that I can see from here is that Sx, Sy and Sz, their commutator is not equal to 0. So these operators are not mutually commuting. So what that means is that these operators cannot have simultaneous eigenvectors. So this is what quantum mechanics dictates. If the commutator is not equal to 0, then the eigenvectors cannot, so then the two operators cannot have simultaneous eigenvectors. They cannot be simultaneously diagonalized. So these form of commutation relations, they tell us that Sx, so these all implies that Sx, Sy and Sz cannot be diagonalized simultaneously. That is, no simultaneous eigenvectors. So there are no simultaneous eigenvectors. And what this means is that if I want to solve the eigenvalue problem for the spin operators, I cannot do it once for all. I have to deal with the operators one by one. So I can pick one operators among the Sx, Sy and Sz and solve for the eigenvalue problem of one of these at a time. So following the conventions that are set up in many textbooks, so we start with finding the eigenvalues and eigenvectors for the Sz operator. The same discussion would stand for Sx and Sy operators, because these three operators stand on equal footing. So I just choose Sz to begin with to solve the eigenvalue problem. So let's just see. We start with the eigenvalue problem for Sz operator. Now there is another piece of information that I can use. So what that piece of information is that I can define another operator which I call S squared, and which can be written as Sx squared plus operator Sy squared plus operator Sz squared. So this is another operator, and this is basically, as you can see, is like the magnitude squared of the total spin angular momentum operator. So this is like the magnitude square of total spin angular momentum operator. And now, by using this form of the S squared operator and these three commutation relations, you can very easily prove that S squared operator with Sx operator, the commutator would be equal to 0. So it's a straightforward computation. And if you want a detailed proof of this relation, then you can check out my other video. The link is in the description. So it's a straightforward computation, and you can see that S square commutes with Sx, S square also commutes with Sy, and same for Sz. And because I set out to solve for the eigenvalue problem of Sz, and Sz commutes with S squared operator because this commutator is equal to 0. So I can simultaneously find the eigenvectors for Sz and S square. So Sz and S square, there are simultaneous eigenvectors. So this is another important piece of information that we deduce from these three additional commutation relations. So what the result is from all this discussion is that when we find the eigenvalues for the eigenvectors for the Sz operator, those would also be the eigenvectors for S square operator. So we can label the eigenvectors for Sz operator as, say, S and Ms. So Ms would correspond to the eigenvalue of Sz operator, and S would correspond to the eigenvalue of S squared operator. And I'm allowed to do this because these two operators S square and Sz, they commute. So this is the thing that we have obtained till now. So this is an abstract form of the eigenvectors of Sz operator that you can find the eigenstates of Sz which are simultaneously eigenstates of S square. And this is again the case for the same is the case for Sx or Sy. If you find the eigenstates for Sx, so that would also be simultaneously eigenstates of S square, or same is the case for Sy. So this is abstractly how you would write the eigenstates for the Sz operator. So we'll further concretize it. We'll see how it looks, but for now we have obtained this result. Now we'll see how this piece of information would help me to find out the eigenvalues of the spin operator. So this is an abstract form of spin eigenvectors. This is the abstract form of spin eigenvectors. So now we'll see what should be the eigenvalues of Sz operator. And if we find eigenvalues of Sz, we can simultaneously find eigenvalues of S squared operator because they commute. Now let's go back to the orbital angular momentum case. In case of orbital angular momentum operators, so for the L vector operators, what we do is that we use these commutation relations. And one thing that I would like to mention here is that all this discussion that I have found till now, that these are the abstract form of eigenstates of the Sz operator, everything follows from this form, the form of the commutation relations that Sx, Sy and Sz has. And since I know that the same form of commutation relation is obeyed by the orbital angular momentum operator, so the same discussion that is valid for the orbital angular momentum also. And the analog of SMS state for the orbital angular momentum case is written as LML for the case of orbital angular momentum operator, where L corresponds to the eigenvalue of L squared operator, which could be written as Lx squared plus Ly squared operator plus Lz squared, and ML corresponds to the eigenvalue of Lz operator. So now what happens for the orbital angular momentum case? So for the orbital angular momentum, we know using these commutation relations, so I'll just take these results here and you'll recall very quickly that this is actually the case. So using these forms of the orbital angular momentum commutation relations, what we find out that L squared acting on these eigenstates LML would give me L into L plus 1, which the label here is. So L into L plus 1 H bar squared, and the same state, because this is an eigenstate of L squared, where L could take any values which could be half integer and integer. There would be some corrections here, so just don't take it very seriously for now. And for Lz, the state acting on LZ, the LZ acting on this state would give me ML H and ML H bar and this state again, where ML can take values between minus L plus 1 to L minus 1 L plus. This is just it. So what I have written here is that if I have eigenstates for simultaneous eigenstates for L square and Lz in case of orbital angular momentum, then this is the eigenvalues for L squared and these are the eigenvalues for Lz, and eigenvalues of L squared could take any of these values, and once the eigenvalue for L squared is fixed, we can find out what could be the eigenvalues for Mn. So we have to fix one of these eigenvalues, maybe this or that. So once the eigenvalues for L squared is fixed, you can figure out what all are the allowed values for the Lz operator Ml. So this is something that follows purely from these commutation relations. No other information other than these commutation relations goes into these eigenvalues equations. So purely on the basis of purely from commutation relations. So this is something that follows from commutation relations. So because this follows from the commutation relations, I can right away see that the same commutation relations are obeyed by the spin operators, because the commutation relations are the same for the spin operators. So I can right away see that if I want to find the eigenvalues for the spin operators, it should be of the same form. So in that case, it would be S into S plus 1, and for Lz, it would for Sz it would be Ms instead of Ml. Because it just follows from the case that L squared, that L vector, the orbital angular momentum vectors, and the spin angular momentum vectors, they have the same commutation relations. Now there is one very important fact that I would like to point out right now, is that for the orbital angular momentum operator, these are the values that follow from the commutation relations. So if I am just concerned with the commutation relations, these are the values that follow. But then we see that orbital angular momentum operators, they act on the space of functions. So these operators, they act on the space of some functions x, y, and z. And additionally, because of the nature of orbital angular momentum operator, it follows that because they act on the space of orbital angular momentum, it follows that the half integer values should not be there. For the total angular momentum operator L squared, the half integer values should not be there, and this follows from the fact that because they act on the space of functions, and these space of functions, so these functions, when they come back to twice, they start from here. So when after twice pi rotation, I have started from here, and after twice pi rotation, when I come back, so these have to be single value. So if the value here is say 5 or 5.4 something, after 2 pi rotation as well, I should get the same value, 5.4. So using this condition, I get the additional constraint that the orbital angular momentum operator cannot have half integer eigenvalues. So for the orbital angular momentum operator, the values, allowed values, are just integer values, 1, 2, 3, etc. So now for the case of spin angular momentum, what happens is, the spin angular momentum has nothing to do with the wave functions. So whatever follows from the commutation relations, I can take it as it from this for the spin angular momentum. So if I go for the spin angular momentum, eigenvalue for Sz, so the eigenstates are Sms, and because the above relations which followed from the spin angular momentum, so it would say that S squared operator acting on Sms would give me S, the same state because it's an eigenstate, and for Sz, the same state would give me eigenvalues Ms h bar. But now I should be very careful that the values of these small, this is not an operator, this is a small s which would correspond to some number, some eigenvalue. But in this case, the spin operator could take any value. It could take integer values, and it could also take half integer values. So these values are well allowed for the case of spin angular momentum, because for the case of orbital angular momentum as well, these half integer eigenvalues, they follow from the commutation relations, and they are excluded because of some physical constraints on the wave functions. But spin, as I just said, as I said in the introduction of this video, spin has nothing to do with x, y, and z. So this additional constraint is not valid for the spin operators. So this is one very important and then one very huge difference between the spin operators and angular momentum operators, that these half integer values are now allowed for the spin angular momentum. And for Sz, the eigenvalues are ms, and once you fix the eigenvalue for the total spin angular momentum operator s square, then you could see what are the eigenvalues for Sz. So it will range between minus s plus 1, and it would go till s minus 1 and s. So you could count explicitly that there are 2s plus 1 of these eigenvalues of S. So this is an important fact, that spin, because this additional requirement came from the wave functions, so this additional requirement is no longer valid for spin operators. So we now have developed a general formalism, and we know abstractly how the eigenstates should look like and what are the associated eigenvalues. So let's just consider an example, and that would make things a bit clearer in your head. So let's just consider that you are dealing with a particle for which the smallest value is 3/2. So the smallest value is a characteristic of the quantum particle that you are dealing with, and the smallest value, you could take it from some experimental results, or maybe your theory gives you this value for the particle that you are dealing with. So anyhow, we just consider that somehow we know that the quantum particle that we are interested in has the smallest value of 3/2. And we know that given the smallest value, we can work out the eigenvalues for the Sz operators as well. So that is why we start with the given smallest value. Now, let's just see what are the eigenvalues for the S squared operator. So eigenvalue for S squared operator, and that eigenvalue would be given by small s into small s plus 1 h bar squared. So if you plug in small s as 3/2, so that would be 3/2 plus 1 h bar squared, and you will find the value of small s as 15/4 h bar squared. And again, if you want, so this is the square of the total spin angular momentum. If you want to figure out the total spin angular momentum eigenvalue, that would just be given by the square root of that. So this is root 15/2 h1. So sometimes when you have a particle with smallest value 3/2, we say that we are dealing with a particle of spin 3/2. So that nomenclature is based on the smallest value and not on the actual total spin angular momentum eigenvalue, which is in terms of this root. So for example, if you are dealing with a particle of spin smallest value 5, you say that you are dealing with a particle of spin 5. So not based on this actual value, but based on the smallest value. So this is the eigenvalue for S squared. Now to figure out the eigenvalue for Sz operator, that we can also do based on that. So for Sz operator, we know that the eigenvalues would be given by ms h bar, and this ms would take values between minus s to plus s, increasing in steps of 1. So these are the eigenvalues, and in our case it turns out to be the possible values for ms would turn out to be minus 3/2, minus half, plus half, and plus 3/2. So these are the possible eigenvalues for the possible values for the ms number here, and this would give me that the possible eigenvalues for the Sz operator would be ms h bar. So that would be minus 3/2 h bar, minus half h bar, plus half h bar, and plus 3/2 h bar. So these are the 4 eigenvalues that we get for the SZ operator. And as we just saw here, that the total number of eigenvalues, we wrote a general formula here that the total number of possible eigenvalues for SZ should be 2s plus 1. And we can explicitly check here that in our case, because S was 3/2, so 2s plus 1 would be 2 times 3/2 plus 1. So that would be equal to 4. And this is exactly the number of eigenvalues that we have here. So we have 4 eigenvalues for SZ. So this is about the eigenvalues for S squared and SZ operators. Now how we abstractly represents the eigenstates for the SZ operator based on this information. So the eigenstates for SZ operator, so the eigenstates would be given by this. Abstractly I can write it as SMS, and the value of S will be fixed for a given quantum particle and MS will vary. So based on the eigenvalues MS, I can write that the possible eigenstates for the case of S equals 3/2 would be 3/2, 3/2, 3/2. Another possible eigenvalue is half. S is again 3/2. MS can take another possible value minus half. And the last possible eigenstate is 3/2 minus 3/2. So these are the 4 possible eigenstates that I can have for a particle with smallest value 3/2. And all these agree with the general formalism that we have developed till now. So then we say if I am dealing with a particle with smallest value 3/2, then I would be dealing with a 4-dimensional Hilbert space. So this is how you fix the dimension for the Hilbert space. So if you are dealing with some value of smallest, so for a quantum particle with a given smallest value, then you can find out that there are 2s plus 1 possible eigenvalues for SZ, and this would represent the dimension of the Hilbert space. So in general, the dimension of the Hilbert space will be 2s plus 1 dimensional. So this is a 2s plus 1 dimensional Hilbert space. So this is how you know in general what is the dimension of Hilbert space that you will be dealing with if you are dealing with a particle with non-zero spin. So yes, I think this is pretty much for this video. So we have now developed a general formalism that tells you that the spin, what should be the form of a spin operator. It's some form of a matrix, n by n matrix. What are the abstract eigenvectors and what are the associated eigenvalues. So from the next video onwards, we'll start concretizing things a bit more. So we have now these general formalism and we'll apply all these things for an electron. So we'll see from in the next video what is the exact form of the n by n spin operators for an electron. What are the associated these apps? What is the exact form, actual concrete form of these eigenvectors, these abstract eigenvectors, and what are the associated eigenvalues. So this we'll do in next video, and we'll be using all these general formalism that we have developed till now. If you like this video, then please hit the like and subscribe button. Thanks for watching. See you next time.